Hi everyone, welcome into the Irish NFL show presented by our friends over at Trust Gaming. Thank you for Trust for this setup. We can see we are in the Technology Cafe in wonderful Navan in the county of Meath. I've got that correct. Welcome in, Colm, Mark, Brian. Lads, obviously a big week 4 ahead. In Belfast last week, in London next week, but Colm this week, we're in the wonderful, wonderful area of Navan. How are you getting on?
Good, delighted to be here. It's a pretty sweet setup looking around. I was saying on the show when we were recording Thursday Night Football, I used to Meath and thought everyone here was about 6'6", given the beatings that they used to give Cork back in the early 90s. But walking around town, that doesn't seem to be the case. But yeah, looking forward to week 4. Plenty of good games today.
Brian, welcome to Meath. Obviously, you had to get me down here after they beat us in the All-Ireland minor final. But obviously, congratulations to them. But great to record here from the Technology Cafe.
I don't think you need to be worried about All-Ireland finals after the months you've had. But yeah, it's a great setup. It's great to be here in Navan. And again, thanks to Trust and thanks to John within the cafe for this wonderful setup and a really good show ahead of us this evening.
Absolutely. And finally, last but in no means least, Mark, great to be in Navan, but also great to have a few NFL fans behind us as well here.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm sure when we start telling the truth about their teams, they'll forgive us at various times. But look, we're in the Royal County, and royalty is definitely occurring this weekend when Tom Brady goes back to the kingdom that is New England. Do you know, Michael, the funny thing is it's week 4, and everyone keeps going on about this player who's going back to his old team and righting some wrongs. But I'm sick and tired of this media focus on Jacoby Brissett going back to the Colts. I mean, why don't we pay attention to that underrated story about Brady going back to New England, you know?
It's going to be a late night on Sunday. I'm not looking forward to it, especially with London next week. But it's going to be good fun. Let's jump ahead of the games for today. We have got at 6 o'clock the Washington football team going up against the Atlanta Falcons in Atlanta. Colm, show us your magic. Who's going to win this game today and why?
Yeah, well, this game will need a bit of magic because it's on paper, it's one of the ones that seems less exciting, but very often those are the games that can take off. Matt Ryan had his best game of this season last week, but he was still sacked 3 times, which doesn't bode well, you would think, given that it's the Washington football team. But Chase Young is sackless through the first 3 weeks of the season, which I don't think anyone expected. It's a tough one to call because I can see ways that both of these teams can win, or probably more likely ways that both of these teams can lose. Taylor Heineke as your starting QB, it feels very similar to Trevor Siemian when he was starting for the Broncos. Good backup can come into a game, but when he's starting, that's a huge worry. They would need Gibson to have a huge game, I think, to win this. The Falcons maybe signs of life, obviously coming back to beat the Giants. It's a tough one, but I think the Falcons, because of Matt Ryan, because I think they'll have a little too much, I'm going to go with the Falcons to go to 2-2 in this.
The Falcons are a strange team. I mean, the first 2 weeks of the season, conceded over 80 points on defense. Kyle Pitts, early pick in the draft, everybody was looking to see what was going to come of him. Very little we've seen so far, over just under 150 yards in 3 games. But defensively, albeit all the points they've given up, they've not given up over 100 yards in rushing. So they seem to be getting something right. They've had a really good win last week, albeit against a poor Giants team. They pulled that out. And Washington's defense in the first 3 weeks of the season, I mean, for the defense that was so good last year and so much was expected of them, the Chargers went up and down the field week 1, only scored 20 points. Week 2, Giants put up 29. And then last week in Buffalo, albeit Buffalo a really good team, they gave up 41 points. We haven't seen anything from this Washington team so far defensively. To your point, Taylor Heineke, he's shown an interception in every game so far. But in this game, in this instance, I'm not sold yet on the Falcons. They could be looking ahead to next week in what looks like an easy game on paper against the Jets in London. But at some stage, this Washington defense has to show up, and I think it will be this Sunday. And I think Washington will pull this game out. It'll be close, but Washington just.
I thought the Falcons had a bye next week. Oh, they've got to actually play a game. Seriously, look, you all remember The X-Files, yeah? I love that show. And there was a couple of key taglines in it. One was trust no one. I don't trust anybody in this game. Like, both of them are so convoluted. They're so capable of throwing this game away. It's unbelievable. So I don't trust either of them to actually turn up. But the other great tagline that show was the truth is out there. And it's not necessarily the truth, but I tell you who is out there. Kyle Pitts is out there. Calvin Ridley is out there. And those weapons alone, Matt Ryan, yes, he is the eternal bridesmaid, obviously 28-3, and we could bring that up a couple of times about that one great season. But he is a super efficient quarterback. He's probably actually going to end up with the passing yardage records at the end of the day because he's just been so efficient over the years with the Falcons. He can do a job for you. Washington with Heineke there, you just don't know what you're going to get. And I'll lean towards the Falcons, but don't expect me to feel good about it.
We say leaning, they're leaning on Cordell Patterson in particular to help them because none of the major players are doing anything for them so far.
Yeah, and like his last great games were about 10 years ago in the league, so there you go.
Let's see what happens. The Falcons arrive in London late next Thursday night. Michael Lavery is going to their practice next Friday, and I'm sure he'll try and get some questions in for Arthur Smith. We'll try and throw some in. If anybody has any they want to tweet to us, we will happily ask them at some point over the next week. Great game for the Falcons next week in London. Looking forward to seeing them this week. Obviously a good win for them last week against the Giants. A poor loss, I thought, for Washington last week. You know, look, I know they got beaten by a very good Buffalo team, but I expected more from them in that game. To concede 43 points and the manner in which they did was a little bit surprising, but not too much surprising. The reality for me is this game's at home for Atlanta. I can see Matt Ryan throwing 2 or 3 touchdowns without having any interceptions, but in reality, Taylor Heineke will throw a couple of picks. I think that'll be the major difference in this game. And I think this is the game where Kyle Pitts finally, I've said this for the last 3 weeks, maybe Kyle Pitts will actually come into his own in this game. And the Falcons will go 2-2 before going up against the Jets at Tottenham next Sunday. So potentially a massive week next week for the Falcons, and we're going to be at Tottenham next Sunday morning live at 9 o'clock. Let's look at another team that could probably do a win this week. The Houston Texans, Colin, going to Buffalo. That's an easy game for the Texans, yeah?
Well, if we go back to January 4, 2020, the Texans beat the Bills in overtime in the playoffs. Very different teams now, obviously. And over the past 2 weeks, the Bills have won with a combined score of 78-21. And Josh Allen getting back to looking like, something approaching his best. 4 touchdown passes last week, spreading the ball out amongst his receivers. For the Texans, they're on the road, gave up 31 points to the Browns on the road. For them, it's the Brandon Cook show. He is the Texans' offense. Davis Mills, in fairness, did well in his first start last week, threw for 168 yards. Brandon Cooks was 112 of those. Unfortunately for Cooks, he goes up against Tre'Davious White today, and that won't be fun. That won't be easy. In fairness, look, I was the biggest critic of the Texans in the off season, and they have, confounded expectations, I think, but they're not going to do so today. The Bills roll on. The Bills go to 3-1.
Yeah, I think we saw from the Bills last week what we expected in terms of how highly rated they are in terms of this year, potentially going to the championship game, going to the Super Bowl. They've won 8 of the last 9 games by plus 10 points. We saw Josh Allen last week really come back to what we're used to seeing. 4 touchdowns, ran one in, and he's gone up against the Texans team that are, let's be fair, they're one of the weakest in the league. I know they've had a bright start to the season, and I think a lot of the players are rallying behind the new coach, but the reality is without Deshaun Watson and he was not going to play this season, they're going to come up against really tough teams on the AFC side of the draw, and when it comes to games like this, they're just not going to have enough. You're right, Davis Mills plays reasonably well last week, but the reality is it still was a comfortable win for the Panthers. A few bright spots with the touchdown to Miller, but by and large, this game, if you look at the spread on it, 17 points, they should be winning by 24, 27 points. Should be a comfortable win for the Bills, and they roll on.
Yeah, I'm going to take you a week further on from Colin. So the Texans actually have won 4 of the last 5 against the Bills. Actually, the Falcons won last 6 against Washington, so that's a fact to watch out for. But there's not going to make it 4. They're not going to make it 5 out of 6. It's going to very much be 4 out of 5 and then 4 out of 6. And the reason is the following week after that Bills playoff win, what happened? They played the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. They were 24-0 up, with Bill O'Brien settling for a field goal at a time when you really felt that they should have, swept the leg, if we can use the Karate Kid reference in that regard, okay? So they really should have gone for him in that regard. And since then, they've had a bigger fall off a cliff than any type of technology company you can think of. I mean, this is like Bebo becoming irrelevant, MySpace becoming irrelevant, Theranos, so obviously collapsing in the stock market. Like, when I think of tech, and we're in the technology cafe, so I might as well have a few of those references, they have gone so low, it's unreal. They're in the Valley of the Kings, they're in Death Valley. There is recovery, however, and the green shoots the column couldn't see in the Aviva. What was the line column? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? I mean, you were really displeased with the Texans. They are playing hard. David Culley's doing a better job than you can imagine, but there is no question the Buffalo Bills will walk this game to cover quite comfortably.
I actually thought the Texans would lose to Carolina last week on that lovely Thursday Night Football. These Thursday Night Football games, boys, are just intriguing at the minute, aren't they? Yeah, some great matchups. But I thought they would lose like 24-21. I thought after week 1, after that win against the Jaguars, where they really impressed a lot of people, we fought for about 5 minutes after seeing how bad the Jaguars truly are. Hello, Urban Meyer. We're coming for you in 2 weeks' time, yeah, in London. So, look, the thing for me this week, and the thing that'll be the X factor for the Bills, is going to be Stephon Diggs. He had 62 yards, 6 catches in week 3. I expect him to get over 100 yards today. But if they can continue to enhance that run game between Singletary and Zach Moss, there's no reason why the Bills won't run into another maybe 20, 25, 30 point lead against the Texans like they had against Washington last week. The intriguing thing for me will be is this: can they get a run game together in Houston? Obviously seeing Mark Ingram, but Philip Lindsay, can he get some sort of yardage in Buffalo? That's the big question. Probably not going to be the answer. So I'm going to pick the Bills by about 25. And I'm just realising now, some of these games, have you anything to add that? You
just on the probably poor old Philip, who we loved in Broncos country, it has not been happy hunting, and going up against a robust, to put it mildly, Bills defence, not going to be fun.
Talbot not going to be fun. The 0-3 Detroit Lions are going up against the saviour in the Chicago Bears, Justin Fields, 1-2. Any Bears fans here? No, there's no.
Quite a few.
Sorry.
Quite a few.
Well, I'm sure Colin will be.
Might be walking out in a minute.
Be kind, Colin.
If anybody walks out, we're really sorry. No, look, it's grand. I mean, look, Colin, they're playing the Lions. Yeah? So.
Well, yeah, okay, it is the Lions, but it's also the Bears. I mean, you're having to go at Thursday Night Football. That was quite a good game, in fairness, when you look at this. I mean, these are two teams, the Lions, who have, shown up, played hard, but just find ways to lose. I mean, the fourth and 19, 66 yards. It's phenomenal to see how they always find new ways to lose. But they're going up against a Bears team who last week provided the worst offensive performance in the league with 47 net yards since 2004. 9 sacks, just a disaster, like an abject disaster. I think I probably need to start the Chicago One campaign again and get Allen Robinson a decent quarterback. There was talk during the week that we could see Nick Foles, and people were saying, well, would that be the answer? Michael Lombardi thinks that Justin Fields should be pulled out. I don't. I think you got to live with the growing pains. I think this game has all the makings of one where a field goal goes, will be. Ordinarily, I definitely say the Lions would find a way to lose. I actually am going to go with the Lions. I think the Lions are going to do it, just because the Bears are such a storied franchise, but the sooner they can move on from Matt Nagy, the better for all concerned, and they can actually really begin to build around Fields, but it's not going to be under Matt Nagy.
I'm speechless here. I don't know what to say.
I think the difficulty for Bears at the moment is there isn't any consistency on the quarterback, but that's not down to the fact that he's picked Dalton to be the quarterback. Dalton has got injured. Fields came in the second game against the Bengals. The defense for the Bears won that game last week against a really good Browns team. Fields had a very difficult day, and we called it out last week that most rookies will have difficult days in terms of their opening game. But for Nagy, the one good thing for Nagy during his career in the Bears, he's 5-1 against this Lions. He seems to have the Lions number. The Lions, you asked about...
That's winning a taller than Danny DeVito contest.
He has to give them something. Look, we bear in mind with the Lions, you're saying like they're finding ways to lose. They lost a 66-yard field goal last week, NFL record. You can't legislate for kickers making that good, no matter how good they are. You know, we talked about great kickers throughout the years. Justin Tucker arguably is the best in the league, and he has been for quite some time in terms of his consistency. 66 yards, that's kind of moving beyond boundaries, and he's going into mile high this weekend. I wouldn't be surprised if he's hitting 70 yards. We gave out about Goff during the off-season because of his career at the Rams, but so far at the Lions he's been efficient enough. 69% completion rate. He had a reasonably good game against the Packers, he had a reasonably good game against the 49ers, and he did well last week. Still picking the Bears.
Yeah. I was wondering for a second there.
Well, I'm just curious because Matt Nagy has the Lions number. The only problem is everyone has the Lions number. I mean, it's kind of like they're in, I don't know, I'll say Copper is at 3 a.m. in the morning and they're throwing out the number easily. The other thing about Matt Nagy is 2 4-letter words. I have heard that some Bears fans do use other 4-letter words when his name comes up quite frequently. He's thrown Justin Fields in there. Obviously, he's the future of the franchise, but he's thrown it behind an ineffective, non-existent offensive line. Like, their offensive line is as bad, if not worse, than the Steelers, and that's saying something. So when Justin Fields has a performance like he does with 1 net passing yard, having lost 67 yards on sacks, 1 net passing yard, yes, you can say he's not ready, but you can also say he's not being put in the position to succeed in that regard. And on the other side, the Lions, I mean, look, I remember the Chargers, who are the eternal example of losing games in unforeseen circumstances. They lost when the Ravens converted a 4th and 29. You remember Ray Rice? He stepped out of a lift and converted a 4th and 29 in that particular game, and they lost the game. This Lions loss was even worse because it wasn't just the 66-yarder. It was the 4th and 19 conversion after they got a sack on first down as well. It was unbelievable. That being said, they're actually playing hard for the dude. They're actually putting some, consistency together. You look at the offensive yardage that they put together per game as opposed to the Bears. It's like about 350 on average compared to 191. The Bears just don't have an offense, and that defense isn't as scary as it was last year. So I'm saying the Lions are going to break their duck egg, and the Lions are going to win this weekend. Sorry, guys.
Are you trying to get people to boycott this show? I mean, look, Matt Nagy, in terms of his future in Chicago, has got as much mileage as an English, or as much fuel as an English filling station at the minute. Nobody get that joke? There's no fuel in England at the minute.
Well, we're aware of that, yeah.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
Just thought it was funny.
Lead balloon.
Yeah, big lead balloon. No, I'm only joking. The Lions are very unlucky. They were very unlucky last week against Baltimore, don't get me wrong. It was an interesting game. We were watching it in Belfast last week. I actually think, and you can go back and watch this for any Bears fans watching this, I think Fields has a day today. I think after the week that you've had in Chicago, talking about the new stadium, talking about the potential for that relocation, I think Fields goes out and rushes for like 40, 50 yards, gets a couple of passing touchdowns. Cole Kmet, I think, is going to be a big factor in this game, but you're completely right, Colin. Allen Robinson needs to show up today, or needs to be given some sort of reason to show up. But I actually think Justin Fields is going to make the whole thing even more confusing, and I'm going to pick the Bears to win.
Kevin, it's a very interesting one because the Lions, over the course of 3 games, their weakest position is giving passes away to tight ends. So if they exploit that, should be a good day for the Bears.
Yeah, and Michael, Justin Fields will definitely run for 40, 50 yards. The only problem is he'll be behind in the backfield running from his life because his offensive line let 3 rushes come through. So
I just have a feeling. But I only got 14 right last week. Sure, it's fine. Don't worry. It's grand. Thanks to the Packers.
He's on a crest of a wave, he is.
Yeah, big crest of a wave. I'm glad that joke went down very well here, by the way, as well. The Panthers are going to Dallas. So the Panthers are 3-0, and the Cowboys are 2-1. Cowboys in the lead. Are they in the lead in the East? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, right.
Wouldn't be hard.
I wasn't trying to annoy you. But anyway, Colin. Not yet. What's your thoughts?
So since December 2017, Dak and the Cowboys have played 12 games in the 6 p.m. slot over here. They are 10-2 in those games. They score an average of 35 points. So the Cowboys in the early slot are money. And if they, had only played in the early slot, perhaps there wouldn't be a 26-year drought for a Super Bowl. I think they are playing really well. In fairness, their defense is actually kind of playing much better than many of us expected, especially picking up on takeaways. They really put a beat down on the Eagles. I think for the Panthers, losing Christian McCaffrey is a huge blow. There's nobody that can really do everything that he does. The Panthers have been very, very solid, but I think going to Jerry's World is going to be just too much if McCaffrey's not there. They are very solid on defense, but they're coming up against a Cowboys offense that just scores points, and they've been willing to kind of not just rely on Zeke. They've learned that they can't do that, so they have brought Pollard more into it. I think the Cowboys are winning. I think the Panthers are losing their first game of the season today.
You touched on them having a very good success rate on the 6 o'clock slot. Well, they have no success rate on a Sunday after playing on Monday night. They've never won a game, the Cowboys, on a Sunday after playing on a Monday.
Wow.
That's a strange one for you. You can look that one up. But this Cowboys offense, and I was quite critical of Dak Prescott going into the season. Not so much of his play, but generally overall, he's been inconsistent. But so far, week 1, 29 points against a really good Bucs team. Week 2, albeit 20 points against a Chargers team that look like they're for real this year. Last week, 41 points against an average Eagles team. But again, Dak Prescott this season, his accuracy looks completely different to what it was leading up to the injury. And the first 2 weeks of the season, they're spreading the ball around the play. Week 1, Schultz was the highest player in terms of targets. Week 2, Lamb. Week 3, Cooper. So the offense is clicking across the table, and you've touched on it. It's not so much about Zeke anymore. Pollard, who we've been calling now, is a really effective running back. He's starting to come into his own. So they're stacked offensively. Defensively, I still think there's a question mark there. But I don't think the Panthers will be able to expose them as much as they could if McCaffrey's a huge loss. He's arguably the best running back in the league behind Henry, if not better. So for them to be 3-0, and Sam Darnold, who has a 68% strike rate so far, he's really efficient, he's playing really well. I've been quite high on the Panthers. Defensively, they're really good, really strong. They've not given up over 15 points, but it's a big ask going into Texas. For me, reluctantly, I'm picking the Cowboys.
Yeah, look, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It isn't Dickens' A Tale of Two Cities, it's very simply for me a tale of two quarterbacks. Sam Darnold, and this is going to sound strange because he is only still 24, but he is a PC running Windows 95. And Dak Prescott and that offense, they are a smooth MacBook Pro flying. And without his little Mac in the back pocket, Christian McCaffrey, who unfortunately is getting injured more than we'd like to see him, it's a no-brainer for me. That Cowboys offense is for real, and they will take this game comfortably.
I've been really impressed with Sam Darnold so far. Obviously, passed for 304 yards with a 95.7 rating last week, 2 rush touchdowns in week 3. That was Thursday Night Football, yeah, week 3.
Yep.
But on the other side, for the Cowboys, having that combination of Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott, especially when I think Pollard should be the starting, should be RB1 in Dallas. There is no doubt about it. But looking at NFC East teams, looking at Dallas, looking at that expectation, is this the year that Dallas finally live up to that expectation? I'm as old as the last time the Cowboys won a Super Bowl, basically, right? So, no, but it's the truth, right? So, can they get to that next step? When you have guys like Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, Trevon Diggs, and, they should be winning this game. With CMC out, they should be winning this game. But what's to say Chuba Hubbard doesn't have a good game in the run? Because if he has a good game in the run, obviously maybe not to that equivalent that Christian McCaffrey might have. 70 or 80% of McCaffrey's net performance and a good, solid performance from Sam Darnold, they'll be in this game going into the fourth quarter.
The Hubbard piece, the drop-off last week in the game against the Texans was significant. You could see it.
He's had a week, though.
10 days, because it was Thursday night. So
he's
got 10 days to get ready.
Has he been drinking his technology cafe coffee? Has he been eating his Weetabix? I don't know. The reality, I'm going to take the Cowboys by a field goal, but I think it'll be a lot tighter than what people are saying. Look, that's a few 6 o'clock games so far. We'll be back in a moment to talk about the other 6 o'clock games here on the Irish NFL Show. Welcome back into the Irish NFL show presented by Trust Gaming. You can see some really cool Trust Gaming equipment both here and behind us. I've got the best chair in here, boys, at the minute. We are in the Technology Cafe in the centre of Navan town. It's a town, boys, yeah? Not a city, no? In Meath. Delighted to be in Meath. It's my first time ever in Meath. I've never been to Slane or Slane Castle. Tell me, I live in the sticks, boys. So look, delighted to be in Navan. Great spot, and even honestly, lads, great coffee as well. So come down here if you ever get a chance to come into Navan, and thank you very much to Trust and also Technology Cafe for allowing us to record this week's show in here. Let's look ahead to another game this week. We got the 0-3 Indianapolis Colts going to Miami against the Dolphins. No Tua time, maybe no Tua time in London. Who's going to win this week?
Oh, both teams desperate for a win. Both teams struggling offensively. Poor old Carson Wentz is playing with knee injuries, ankle injuries, and with the Colts making all sorts of strange decisions. Jonathan Taylor has been, probably their most effective player, and yet they've neutralized him themselves by choosing not to use him. If you are the Colts looking at it, nothing has gone right since you brought Wentz in. Between the off-season and all the stuff around the vaccine, injuries, and it's difficult to see how the Colts, right the ship. We were talking actually on the way down, and we've talked about it on the show. At what point, if you're the Colts, if the season continues to go like this, do you pull Wentz because you don't want to give away that first-round pick? If you're the Dolphins, it hasn't been a whole lot better because on offense, you just cannot score points. But I think this is probably a bounce-back performance for Brian Flores. He has the ability to really kind of create chaos. And just because with Wentz playing so beat up, with them not utilising Taylor, I think the Colts are slipping to 0-4 here. And I really think that the Dolphins are going back to 2-2.
Titans love that.
I was reading a really interesting article this week around Jacoby Brissett and the fact that he felt during the off-season he wasn't given a proper opportunity to challenge to be the starting quarterback, that he felt that having come in from Indianapolis that he was in a position to be the starter. He's been given his opportunity now, albeit Tua is injured. And I know he went down to a really difficult defeat in overtime last week, but he played really well. He was really efficient, and he pulled them back when the game looked like it was gone away. They got into overtime. It didn't play out that way. So for the Dolphins offensively, they played quite well last week. And Waddle, 22 receptions this season, only one behind Anquan Bolden in terms of records for rookies in their first season, who had 23 catches. I called out in our season preview show, I felt he'd be the rookie of the year, and he's going towards that, albeit very early in the season. And to the point around the Colts, a lot of people expect them to challenge the Titans this year for the division, but they've fallen off the cliff early. They've lost the first 3 games. Carson Wentz has now lost 7 in a row, dating back to his time in Philadelphia. 28 hits on him this season. You would have thought, having left Philadelphia and being battered all year long, he was going into a sturdy offensive line, which last year was, but it doesn't look the case this year. And he's the highest quarterback in the league in terms of hits. Colin touched on it. Taylor, he's not being efficiently used. Hines had a really good game last week. They're going to have to rely on the run game. Don't see it. I'm with Colin. I'm on the Dolphins to win the game.
Yeah, I mean, Carson Wentz was getting hit on the pitch, off the pitch in Philly, and it's occurring very much on the pitch in the Indianapolis for him as well. The Jonathan Taylor situation is just bizarre. Like how the coaching is calling that for him. I mean, Carson Wentz is back there making Ben Roethlisberger look like Torval and Dean in terms of nimbleness. He can't move. He can't run. He can't slide in the pocket. He is injured. And the only thing I can put it down to is they're not actually going to remove him. They're just going to wait until he's taken off in a stretcher and therefore don't have to give up the first round pick, because that's what they're selling him up for there. Look, the Dolphins have their own troubles. Without Tua, they've got problems. Their defense has been nowhere near as efficient as it was last year, giving up yards to beat the band. But they get the big turnover. Look at last week. Landon Roberts, the pick 6 and stuff like that. They're still generating turnovers and those big momentum-changing plays. Of course, their season after the great opening win against the Patriots hasn't gone like they would have wanted to. They looked very, shambolic is the only way you can describe it against the Bills. But, yeah, on balance, I'm with the boys. I think they're going to have enough for the Colts here. Colts go 0-4, Titans stroll to their division.
Strolling. It's week 4. Not even Halloween yet, Mark.
And it's already done, Michael. It's already done.
It's already done. For me, I was actually quite impressed with the Dolphins last week, albeit they did lose 28 points in Vegas. Difficult place to go, albeit a new stadium. The crowd were really giving it one. I really enjoyed Bruce Buffer as well, watching it up in Belfast. Jacoby Brissett's a good stopgap until they get Tua back. I don't think Tua will be back by the time we're in London. I don't think he'll be back to week 8, week 9. What do I know? I'm not a medical doctor, but that's just my guessing.
Okay, Dr. Nick.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's just I think the Dolphins defense wins this game, right? I do, but I also think Devontae Parker is going to be in for a massive game this week. But who do they play next week? Who do the Dolphins play next week? The Bucks. And who do they play the week after? Nobody. The Jaguars in London. Yeah, that was a joke.
Yeah.
You said it earlier on. So they have to win this game. If they win this game, they go 2-2. If they lose against the Bucks, they go 2-3. And then they have a massive game in London to hopefully for themselves go 3-3 and have a lifeline going into week 7. I think they have a bye around then as well. But I think they just about get the win. They edge it out today against the Colts team that, to be honest with you, I had them going for the playoffs.
Well, I mean, we all expected the Colts defense to be better as well. Like they still got Darius Leonard, one of the best linebackers in the game last week. 6 tackles, interception, forced fumble, back to his old self. It's just the rest of the moving parts haven't come up. But a random stat or a random fact about Jacoby Brissett. Do you know who his mentor is?
No.
His mentor and has mentored him through his NFL career is actually Bill Parcells. And he has championed him all the way through the various stops. Then you kind of go and start putting 2 and 2 together. It's like, well, he started with the Patriots. And, you know, Parcells has some connections with the Colts, and he has a lot of connections in the Dolphins from his time there. He has been a big champion, Jacoby Brissett. He thinks he can make it as an NFL starting quarterback. And it's not like he didn't have chances replacing Andrew Luck, and he's got another chance now in Miami to prove it to the rest of the 32 teams.
But that was the point of the story, that they didn't even give him that opportunity to be the challenger. It was, you're the backup. You get your chance if he's injured.
Let's see what happens later on today. The next game is the Browns going to the Vikings in an intriguing matchup. The last time these two played each other was in 2017 in London, with the Vikings taking the win on that day. I think this is the most interesting game this week. Seriously. I know there's a big game on Sunday night, but this, genuinely, for me, is the most interesting game. The Vikings come back last week to prove people wrong, winning a massive game. What's your thoughts on this one?
Well, it's definitely one of the most interesting games. There are quite a few, I think, this week. But the Vikings are really interesting because you look at the Vikings and they're capable of winning any game. They're also capable of losing any game. Any game you think of. I suppose for this team, you're looking at the Browns and the Vikings, and they're both set up in very similar ways. Both on offense, they look to dominate on the ground, and that to set up the pass. And that's because, I mean, you're talking about Kevin Stefanski has the Minnesota Lynx. You now have Clint Kubiak running the Kubiak system. And in fairness, Kirk Cousins has been very good. If Kirk Cousins was at the Browns, the Browns could well be sitting at 3-0 because Cousins has been playing very, very well this year. And Clint Kubiak and Minnesota offense got praise from Mike Zimmer last week, which is a very, very rare occurrence. Usually the crankiest man in the league. I don't know if anyone saw the video of Myles Garrett during the week where he appeared to be like Neo from The Matrix and he just appeared. The Bears line went left, he went right, and he just magically transported himself. He seems to be unblockable. 5.5 sacks, 4.5 last week. He's going to look to add to that. And for the Vikes, they have allowed teams get to Cousins. I can see ways, again, both of these teams can win it. I just think the Browns are stronger defensively, and that's what will carry them. And while Mike Zimmer was all sunshine and rainbows, he will be back to his cranky self, and he'll be throwing people under the bus because it'll never be his fault that the Vikings lost.
This Vikings team should be really 3-0. They let one slip in the Bengals. They definitely let it slip in Arizona with the missed field goal to win the game at the end. Rebounded well last week against a really efficient Seattle team. And Kirk Cousins, you touched on it there. For all his inconsistent play over the past few years, this season, 3 games, plus 400 in each game, 24 touchdowns thrown. Only 1 of 3 teams that have done that. He's thrown 8 touchdowns, no interceptions. His passer completion rate is off the charts. But yeah, they're 1 and 2, and you still can't with all of the put your money on the Vikings because you just can't trust them. And we've touched on the difficult situation they've had in the off season with a number of the quarterbacks not getting vaccinated, and I still feel that will ultimately cost the head coach's job in the end. The Browns are a more stable team. They've got two really efficient running backs in Chubb and Hunt. You know, they're between the two of them. We saw last year they were getting over 100 plus yards in games, and they've got players such as Hooper, and players last week were out. Andrews out last week. Odell Beckham came back, had some really good plays, albeit against arguably a poor Bears team. But for me, the Browns at the start of the season were a team we all felt that could be, you know, on the crest of the wave in terms of potentially going to the championship game. I see a high scoring game. I think the Browns just win this one, just about.
Marcus?
Yeah, Kirk Cousins has 75% completion percentage. It's not off the charts. It's still in the charts. Don't get me wrong.
Compared to previous years, it's off the charts.
And well, the bigger thing is the 0 interceptions. In fairness, because that's the biggest difference for him. He's not making the stupid mistakes. We talk about the Vikings all the time. He's got Dalvin Cook. He's got Justin Jefferson, the best rookie from last year. He's got Adam Thielen. Like, the weapons are all there. And the other week, obviously, they stepped up and they performed. And you kind of go, oh, that, you know. I think some people picked the Vikings last week. Was it me? Oh, it was me and Mike, in fairness. But we know they've got that potential in them. Whereas, in contrast, the Browns, like, so far, they're not messing it up. We always kind of worry about the Browns, like, because they're so favoured. What are they going to do wrong? You can't count last week. Sorry again, Bears fans, but like 4.5 sacks against that offensive line probably equates to 1 sack in real life because, you know, most of it's because they're just inept on the offensive line. But Myles Garrett is a beast when he gets going. But that Browns defense hasn't performed, other than against the Bears, the way you would like or expect. Certainly, you know, the second half against the Chiefs game and everything, they fell off a cliff. They didn't stop the plays when you needed them. They need to be there because you can't rely on Baker. You still can't rely on Baker, and here's the challenge. But I'll give you one of the weird X factors for me. In the very first game of the season, I said, actually, hey, Browns-Chiefs game, the difference might be the kickers. Harrison Butker, best field goal percentage, only behind Justin Tucker, and Chase McLaughlin, like journeyman, hasn't done anything. Yeah, Chase McLaughlin hasn't missed a kick this season already, and as we've already talked about, the Vikings have missed a very important kick. It's going to be tight. I think it's going to be a field goal. And I think Chase McLaughlin continues to prove me wrong and stays perfect. And the Browns win it by a field goal.
The Vikings could have very easily felt sorry for themselves last Sunday going up against Seattle and lost the game. They didn't. Kirk Cousins balled out. Dalvin Cook was unbelievable last week, boys. But I think the reality is this. This is it. They have no excuses now. Mike Zimmer's got no excuses when you've got Kirk Cousins, Dalvin Cook, Adam Thielen, who him and Cooper Kupp are like, I think, two out of the 3 top wide receivers in the NFC for a start in terms of stats. There are no excuses when you got a guy like Justin Jefferson as well. They found a way to win against Seattle last week. They have to try and find a win today against the Browns. But it's not as if you're going against an average opponent in the Browns when Baker Mayfield has, Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, Odell had a good start to the season last week in his first game. I think this game will be tight, but I think the Vikings will edge it very slightly, and I'm going to take the Vikings to go 2-2. I think the Vikings, as I said in your gaff, Brian, 5 weeks ago, that I think the Vikings would challenge for the division or win the division, and I was very disappointed to see where they were after the second week. This is it now. It's make or break time. Get to 2-2 and start again and hope that Aaron can maybe mess up in Green Bay. Let's very quickly jump on to the next game. Big game for the New York Giants. 0-3 going up against the New Orleans Saints in the Caesar Superdome. Big game for the Saints. Can they go 3-1?
So I like to make notes during the week on each of the games, thoughts, get some of the stats. Don't know if Matthew, if you can get that. My notes on the Giants and the Saints game, I have the Giants are the best 0-3 team, which again it isn't particularly difficult, and the Saints are Jekyll and Hyde, because the Giants haven't. Daniel Jones has been fine. Saquon is finding his way back. They haven't been terrible on defense. I mean, they've been good until they haven't. Like, there are moments in games where they do well until it all kind of falls apart. They couldn't get to Teddy Bridgewater. They had their chances, and it just didn't happen for them. And the Saints have put a beat down on the Packers. They put a beat down on the Patriots. Jameis might be the most, unintentionally hilarious man in the league in terms of his interviews. You never know what you're going to get in the interviews. You never know what you're going to get on the field. But Alvin Kamara kind of rebounded last week, and the fact that the Saints are back at home, you can imagine what the crowd is going to be like there. Unfortunately for Brian's Giants, I think they go to 0-4. I mean, we talked about it with Michael Lombardi. The Giants kind of probably need root and branch reform, but what they need is a way that they can navigate the next 14 weeks, because right now, while nothing is like horrific on the field, there's nothing that you can point to that's saying, that's who's going to carry you through a game. And that would be the concern I would have. So, yeah, to me, the Saints are looking at this and they go 3-1.
They're good until the important part of the game, which is the fourth quarter. They're in the games, they hit the fourth quarter, and then it tends to go away. They're finding ways to lose games as opposed to win games. And that's kind of reflecting back in last year as well. There was a number of games last year where the Giants had great opportunities to win. They were up by 12 points in Philadelphia. Sure, they intercepted Washington in the red zone last week and still found a way to lose the game. They just can't seem to get over the line. And if they do get over the line, potentially I think there's other wins there, but it's not going to get any easier. Next week is Dallas. The week after that is the Rams. There's an argument they will be 0-6. You look at the offense, which has played reasonably well, albeit they only scored 14 points against the defense last week. That had given up 40 points the previous 2 weeks. But Slayton, who's a really efficient wide receiver, is out. Shepard, who's arguably our best wide receiver so far, is out. Saquon Barkley is slowly getting better, but gets to a stage where he has to be the running back that we expect him to be, and not this 5 or 6 week lead-in time to be really efficient, because we need him to start playing now. The first round, they've passed the offensive line in the draft, which is a key concern, to bring in a wide receiver that we haven't seen for the first 3 weeks, and we keep hearing the old saying, he's first year, we need to bet him in. But the NFL doesn't work like that anymore, and you see more wide receivers hitting the ground running. Waddle, Miami, straight away. Chase for the Bengals, didn't do a lot. And Thursday night, but up the other previous weeks, really efficient. I can't see why he's not getting more of the ball. And then I look at the Saints defensively. We touched on at the start of the season, could his offense really play well? And we felt that Drew Brees, to a certain extent, held him back last year because it looked like he was falling off the cliff in terms of his arm and getting the ball deep down the field. Winston has become a really good, efficient game manager so far. He's not shown the interceptions that we're used to seeing. Defensively, 6th in the league ranked at the moment after only 3 weeks. And last season, this defense was really strong. They're going back into the dome. It's only going to end one way, unfortunately, for the Giants. So you can see the Giants again playing reasonably good football, hanging around, hit the fourth quarter. Things will go amiss and the Saints will win.
We're here in the Technology Cafe, surrounded by all this great gear from Trust, our sponsors, and it's important to realise not always is something new good. So new Coke, for example, terrible mistake. Should never have done it. New York Giants, New Orleans Saints, not good, either of them. Column says the Saints are Jekyll and Hyde. They're not Jekyll and Hyde. Jameis Winston is Jekyll and Hyde. Jameis Winston is the very epitome of Jekyll and Hyde. Like, Robert Louis Stevenson might have even written the book about Jameis Winston. Brian said he hasn't made bad interceptions. Look at week 2. He was appalling again. He threw a shovel pass into a defensive lineman's hands. Jameis Winston is going to go like this all season, like he did with the Bucs, like he's done all his career. Good week, bad week, good week, bad week. It's week 4. It's time for a bad week. And Daniel Jones last week, probably with his most efficient game as a Giant, has had 10 days to prepare. The New York Giants are going to break their duck. They're going to win this weekend.
Who did Jameis have a good week against last week?
He had a really good week against the Patriots.
And who's the Patriots head coach?
Bill Belichick.
Who generally schemes really well against quarterbacks, right?
The New York Giants are going to win this weekend.
For anybody watching the show last week, Mark described Mac Jones as the second coming, basically, for the Patriots.
I don't think so. But we'll get to Mac Jones later.
I'm excited by his pick, but the reality is he picked the Giants last week and we lost, so I'm not going to get too carried away.
I will say Mac Jones is the best Jones quarterback in the NFL.
I wouldn't go that far.
I think, as somebody that has visual issues myself, wears contact lenses, I know Jameis has had a hard off season. I think Jameis will win this game today, and I think he'll play well. I think he'll play better than last week. And what happened last week? How many points did the Saints put up last week? 28 in New England. They're going to be playing at home this week. They've been away for a few weeks with everything that's happened. They've had a hard few weeks, and I think they'll be happy to be at home. I think Alvin Kamara will come into the game even more this week. And I can see Taysom Hill getting more opportunities. He had a touchdown last week, a rush touchdown. And I think the Saints will win this game comfortably. The Giants will fall to 0-4. And hearing what Brian said about their schedule coming up, I think it's time to listen to trade offers. I think it's time to listen to trade offers for Saquon Barkley. I think it's time to start to reboot and to start again if they go 0-4, because at that point, it's important to do that for the future. Let's talk about that Monday night, yeah, because we haven't got a lot of time in that sense. Titans 2-1 at the 0-3 London bound. Next week, New York Jets, or New Jersey Jets, Colin. Who have you got winning this game today?
Well, the good news for the Giants is that they're not the worst New York team, because there's not even a competition for that. The Jets haven't scored a touchdown since week 1. There are 12-year-olds who now have careers in mocking the Jets. Okay, that kid has been picked up, has been on networks in America, just because he can point out how horrific they are on offense. The Titans are in a strange situation because they're 2-1, but they haven't played particularly well. It's purely been on kind of individual brilliance. It's a bit like Manchester United at the moment. They're so reliant on the individual players rather than the team or the system doing particularly well. The bad news for the Jets is that they're a bad team, and even without potentially Julio Jones, even without AJ Brown, just hand the ball to Derrick Henry 30 times and he will do enough to beat the Jets. I mean, look, the Jets will probably, as is their way, find a way to win some games this year and do themselves out of the number 1 pick, because, well, as long as Urban is in Jacksonville. But I don't think they're going to do a number on the Titans. I think that the Titans are moving on with a win, and the Jets are 0-4. And New York doesn't have a single solitary victory through the first 4 weeks of this NFL season.
I was looking for a glimmer of hope for the Jets and how they could potentially win this game. And I saw during the week that Brown and Jones are both expected to be out of the game, so they don't really have any wide receivers. Then I looked at in terms of who's picking up the most receptions thereafter. Oh, it's Derrick Henry, who now has the overall record of the league, with Kamara in second from the Saints. So not only now is he becoming a really efficient running back in terms of handing the ball off, he's also really good with the pass catches. He's 353 yards in rushing already this season. The Jets have given up 5 touchdowns this season to running backs. It just doesn't look good for the Jets, unfortunately. And then I said, you know what, maybe we could find some stat that will lead to a Jets win. They were shut out last week against the Broncos, so I looked to see every time within their franchise history when they've been shut out, how they got on the following week. They've lost every single game. They're going to lose this game again. It's the Titans for me, and they rolled on to 3-1.
Yeah, in 1994, Fox entered the NFL. They were massively outbid CBS at the time and knocked them out, taking over the network running of the NFC at the time. And at that time, they brought in a number of technological advancements in how they broadcast the game. One of which was actually the depiction of the score, the down, and the time at all times in the broadcast. Like, unbelievably, until 1994, this wasn't done. And if you ever want just a random YouTube clip, go back and watch John Madden and Pat Summerall. John Madden explained this like it's the Dead Sea Scrolls. It's actually quite funny in relation to it. Now, Michael's sitting at the other end of this table wondering, where the hell is he going with this? And can he get on with the talking about the game? But the reality is, I'd rather talk about that than I would the Jets, because they're pretty pathetic, to be honest with you. Tennessee Titans don't need to start Derrick Henry. They could start Derek Carr at running back in this game, and they'll still win the game. Titans will walk it. Let's move on.
Yeah, like, look, if you're playing EA Sports Madden 22 or FIFA 22 and you're beating somebody well and your opponent leaves the match, this is the equivalent of it. The Titans are going to win. I'm not going to waste time talking about it. I'm going to move on. Last game before we get some questions from the audience, hopefully. I'm looking forward to this, to your reaction. The Chiefs, the 1-2, 4th place in the AFC West, Kansas City Chiefs, who were in the Super Bowl 8 months ago. Colin, what's your thoughts on this game going up against the Philadelphia Eagles? Yeah,
I'm glad you gave them their official title.
Good title there, yeah.
The 4th placed Chiefs. Gonna savor that one as a Broncos fan. Going to Philadelphia. The Eagles started the season really well. I do think they'll be really entertaining, But wow, was Monday night a train wreck. They ran the ball 5 times. 5 times. Jalen Hurts dropped back 48 times. Jalen Hurts. That is, up there. Last week, I talked about how Jared Goff had the most rushing yards for the Lions. Jalen Hurts dropped back 48 times. You wonder, like, head coaches get paid millions, and they make decisions like that. You have to utilize the run if you're the Eagles. The Chiefs haven't played well. Like 6 turnovers through 3 games, 15 turnovers in total last year. Look, they've given up 12 touchdowns in 13 trips to the red zone by their opponents. So defensively, they're not doing well. But this game is in Philadelphia. Andy Reid ended up in hospital last week. Fortunately, he's okay. But if the Chiefs needed any extra motivation, that was it. The Chiefs are going to... the Eagles have only given up 1 play over 20 yards, but now they face Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. I think the Chiefs put on a show, and they put up serious numbers on this Eagles team. I think the Chiefs are winning this for Andy Reid. They have issues that will need to be addressed, but the Eagles aren't good enough to take advantage of it, and the Chiefs will be back at 500 at the end of this game.
I know you two Broncos fans are quite giddy by the fact that they're in bottom place. The last time they were in bottom place was week 5 in 2015, and then they won 10 games in a row. And they're more than capable of winning 10 games in a row because the team they have potentially is still good enough to go back to the Super Bowl. The Eagles, they got off to a fast start in week 1 against, we still believe, an average Falcons team. The run game it can be quite efficient. It's averaging around 129 yards. The Chiefs' defense is a big concern. They've given up an average of 31 points per game, 133 yards on the ground. But I'm with Colin, I just can't see how the Chiefs don't rebound. There's too many weapons. I can't see, even if it comes down to a ding-dong in terms of back and forth, realistically, can we see the Eagles living with them, putting up 30-odd points? Can't see it for me. Chiefs to win.
Yeah, Colin said the Eagles haven't allowed 1 catch over 20 yards. That's kind of handy because Jalen Hurts can't throw the ball more than 15 yards accurately. He has no kind of concept of a downfield passing game, and that is a serious indictment on where he and that franchise will go longer term. Look, when I think of this game, something springs to mind is Isaac Asimov writing about the ghost in the machine and the concept of artificial intelligence and the idea of it. And both these teams in recent times, like think back reasonably recently in the Eagles' past, we had the Chip Kelly era. Oh, this is going to revolutionize the NFL. This is going to be the new coming. And then they win the Super Bowl, and it's like Doug Peterson and Carson Wentz. This is the future. We've got this all figured out. There's a little bit maybe to be said for the Kansas City Chiefs and all of this excitement and this razzle-dazzle starting to be, well, maybe that isn't the future and the AI of the future again. Like Patrick Mahomes throwing an interception last week with one of his no-look passes. Do you know what, Patrick, which really helps? Looking where you're supposed to throw the ball. That's generally been known to help to throw it to the right person. And yes, the receiver dropped the ball and it was more on the receiver than him. But still, it's rare we get to take a couple of shots at the Chiefs. They will be fine by the end of the season. They will be in the playoffs one way or the other. Maybe they won't win the division because the Chargers have a good shout in that regard. Definitely not the Broncos, guys. Definitely not. But the Chiefs will be okay. They'll get there, and they'll start getting the show back on the road by winning this weekend.
This is an intriguing game, and I'm going to say this because I don't want anybody to start talking back to me here because we want to get some questions in a second. I think Mahomes' performance last week raised the questions. I'm sure he'll come back this week and play great. But there was a few times last week when it was almost like hitting and hoping, and he maybe wasn't looking where he should have. And I think he's actually come out and said that himself. So it's one of those situations where this happened in February as well. Granted, he didn't have as much protection in February, but this defense is nowhere near where it needs to be to win this division. It's not over the course of a 17-game season as it stands at the minute. It's not. It's
not enough to win a Super Bowl, but to win the division will be okay. I mean, I did hear Chiefs fans wondering, like, Jesus, we're worried about Patrick Mahomes. Should we trade him for Drew Lock or Teddy Bridgewater? But, that's another matter.
Here, look, keep it coming. I think, honestly, if the Chiefs were going up against the Cowboys or somebody else close enough, just at that next level than the Eagles, they would have more trouble. I can see the Chiefs winning this game by 7 to 10 points. I honestly can't. I think the Eagles will come out and have a strong start, and the Chiefs will claw it back. But I think the performance today of Patrick Mahomes is going to be intriguing, because will Mahomes silence that talk? Like we seen Belfast last week when the Chargers won that game. That was incredible whenever the Chargers won that game in that bar. And
the Chargers fans celebrating.
The Chargers fans celebrating, and obviously Colin was celebrating as well. And I was celebrating. don't.
I thought I was at a Chargers supporters club meeting.
Don't write the Eagles off yet.
I think what we're seeing from the Eagles since they had that great week 1 is they've come back to majority of people's expectations for the season. Played well against the 49ers. Went in on Monday night in an NFC East divisional game, which is normally quite close over the years, and they got tanked.
Any team going from the mid to the west coast going over to the east coast might have a difficult game. The Chiefs have conceded a lot of points in all 3 games this season. Do not be surprised if they find it hard against the Eagles. They'll win the game, but I really want to say the Eagles, but I can't, so I'm going to pick the Chiefs. Okay, we'll be back in a couple of minutes with people's questions from the crowd here in Navan. Stick with us here on the Irish NFL Show. Welcome back into the Irish NFL Show, presented by Trust Gaming here at the Technology Cafe in Navan in County Meath. Delighted to be here. Great, really appreciate the support from people that have turned out tonight. A few people want to ask a couple of questions. If you want to come up, take the microphone, tell us maybe who you are, where you're from, and feel free to give us any questions you want, NFL related, or maybe Tyrone All-Ireland related. Brian, no? No, okay,
no.
Right. I got no response either, so all good. Feel free to come up, boys, if you have any questions, and we will try and answer them.
Hi lads, yeah, Gareth from Dublin here. Big Bears fan, but we'll leave that aside for a minute. Just want to know, if seeing the Cowboys the first 4 weeks, are they for real this year?
Can I go first?
Yeah.
I don't think it matters at the minute because of the division that they're in. I think I had actually originally thought Washington would be up there, but I think the Cowboys will win the NFC East comfortably at this point. I genuinely think. I mean, do you think they're for real in terms of after that for the Super Bowl?
In that division, the Super Bowl might be a big ask, but I think that the league has gone increasingly towards offense, and they put up serious points. On defense, it's more, it feels like when you look at the way the defenses that are probably strongest, Staley and Fangio is the way that the league seems to have gone on defense, and it's about disguising, it's about not letting them know what's coming, which is why the 49ers last week not disguising anything that they were doing on defense was very strange. But the Cowboys score a lot of points, they have a lot of weapons. I think, to me, the fact that as we talked about, the willingness to say, okay, it's not, Zeke isn't what he was, and he can be more effective if we use him sparingly, will benefit them. So yeah, I think they're certainly, as Michael said, I think they will win their division. I think they'll cause problems in the playoffs. How deep they go, we'll see. But once you're at the dance, you're in with a shot. So yeah, in comparison to what I thought before the season, they have surprised me.
We were fortunate to interview John Rashoda from The Athletic, who covers the Dallas Cowboys in the off-season. And he said this team needs to make a serious push in the playoffs. Mike McCarthy was brought in last year in terms of the head coach. He wasn't brought in for a 4 to 5 year plan to get the Cowboys to the Super Bowl. It was very much a win-now situation for Jerry Jones. This team needs to be going to the playoffs. I think the guys are right. The way the division looks at a very early stage, the inconsistencies of Washington, Giants and Eagles aren't going to challenge. I think they will win the division. Will they make a serious run in the playoffs? Potentially, but it all depends on where the structure of the playoffs is. Do they get a home game in the playoffs? They will if they win the division. But then where do they go after that? If they're going to the Rams or Bucks, who after last week's game looked like they would be the number 1 and 2 seeds, difficult to see how they would beat them. But who would have thought the Bucks, having lost to the Chiefs in November last year, would go on the run they did? So for this Cowboys team, if they get hot at the right time, they've got the offense to go against any team. We saw it in week 1, even against the Bucks. They potentially could have won that game.
We mentioned the Cowboys, and you didn't mention Jane Slater, Brian. I mean, you must be slipping. But Jane Slater did actually fill us in on some of the comings and goings during that team last season, and some of the bizarre nature that was going on. They seem more gelled as a team. And to echo what the guys are saying, if you say, are they for real? On offense, yes. On defense, not so sure. But I'll give you 2 words why they aren't the real deal and they can't go all the way. And those 2 words, very simply, are Mike McCarthy. He will hold them back more than anything else. But they're going to be exciting to watch this year. I think there's no doubt about that. And good luck to them. And it's always good for the league when the Cowboys are involved in big games because they bring the money home.
One thing that's interesting, though, is they have, because there was a lot of doubts about them, the fact that Jerry indicated that he'd bring Jimmy Johnson into their Ring of Fame, maybe that lifted the curse. But he's got to do it, I think, before the playoffs if they're to have any sort of decent run in the playoffs.
So like Mayo sort of curse.
Yeah, could be a
like
Mayo type situation.
Any other questions or any review on
Mayo or sort now having
your man passed away last week. I've seen that. Yeah. I mean, obviously, God rest him.
Mayo assorted. That's not exactly the expression.
The guy who made the Ray Rice comment earlier on doesn't get to have a go at anyone for that.
Any other questions, folks? Are we all okay? Yeah, go for it. Happy days.
If you were a betting man, who would your underdog or best bet of the week be for the underdogs?
Love it.
Broncos to beat the Ravens. They're at home. They're up 3-0. The crowd are behind them. The Ravens came off a very bad week last week. I'm biased, but even taking myself aside from it, Bridgewater should get them over the line. Spoiler alert for the next segment in the show.
If I didn't have bad luck, I'd have no luck. So I'm going to defer to Brian O'Leary on this one.
Underdog of the week, Patriots.
Oh, come on. Come on.
Even I'm laughing at that. What the hell are you talking about?
Move Bill Belichick has a way of winning games.
We'll be back next week on the Irish.
Okay, so I got to ask.
And because I know Michael has to edit it, and there's not more for Michael when he has to put one pick in of 1-2.
Can I just ask, Lions underdogs?
6.5 points, Patriots.
No, Lions underdogs.
Oh, by 3 points. Come on.
Then I'll take the Lions or the Giants.
The Giants are.
I've
the
already
Giants
picked
are
them,
8 points.
so Lions or the Giants for me. Lions because, again, I feel like a bad saying this because they're going against the Bears and I don't trust the Bears more than anything. I'm looking around. I might not get out alive, but I would just say that out there. Okay.
Mark is about as accurate at me at predicting games, so take that as you will. Listen to Brian.
Any other questions, lads? Happy enough. Happy days. So you're. Do you want to do it in the mic? Yeah. No. Okay. That's great. I'll try that if you want. So Emmett's asking about Justin Fields. So how long do you think he'll last, or his?
Ultimately, how will it pan out for Justin Fields? And the second part of the question is, how long will Nagy last?
So how will it pan out for Justin Fields, and how long will Nagy last? I think Nagy will see out. Do you know what? If it was any other franchise, I'd say Nagy would see out 17 weeks. I don't know, to be honest with you. Do I think he gets past Thanksgiving? In Chicago, probably not. Let's see what happens this week against the Lions. Like, you're picking the Lions to beat the Bears this week. So that's, if Nagy loses that, like, you know, there will be talk, but the whole field situation is weird, isn't it?
I think Nagy's an awful head coach. I have no time for him. I think the way he goes about his business makes no sense. I think how he handled the Dalton and Fields situation was silly. I think if he wanted Dalton to be number one, he should have just said, I'm going with Andy because of his experience, and we're going to sit just. I'm going with Andy because I made him a promise that he'd start. What does that say to the dressing room? I think when you look at the way in which they handled Trubisky, there was no plan. So I'd worry for Fields. The longer Nagy is there, the worse things will be. I think for me, right, with young QBs, I think you got to live with the growing pains. I think there are very few, and Michael and I probably disagree on that, in that Michael, I think, thinks you should sit young QBs. I think you start them and you live with the growing pains and you see what happens. Because even Peyton Manning had a disaster in that first season. Threw a lot of touchdowns, but through a whole host of interceptions. So I think Fields, if he can get the right coach in, will be fine. But I would say Nagy's already overstayed his welcome. But I think that Ryan Pace is tied to Nagy, and I think Ryan Pace is going to hang on to Nagy for too long. And I would say if I was the Bears, I'd move Nagy on. But yeah, he might. I certainly don't think he makes it past Thanksgiving.
Michael Lombardi made a very good point on Thursday night that they're trying to utilise Fields in an Andy Dalton offense, and that's not really the way it should be done. He should be gearing the team towards the skill set of what he's got in this rookie quarterback. It's a plug and play situation. That's not going to work. I do think Nagy will be there for the season, because I do think Bears will win enough games to justify the season in terms of him being there. Well, they won't make the playoffs, but enough for him to be there to the end of the season. But when the season ends, he's gone. I know last season, in the off-season, a lot of Bears fans were disgruntled by the fact that the GM was still there. If he goes, inevitably the GM goes and they blow it up. Fields, I think he will have a really good career at the Bears, but ultimately they need to make sure they get the right head coach. And the narrative is that you need to get an offensively minded head coach to get the best out of him, but wasn't Nagy brought in because he'd worked with Mahomes and they all felt he was the right guy. I think it doesn't really matter what quarterback you have. If the coach isn't willing to change the structure, even last season, he handed over the playbook and then took it back again. So the inconsistency is there, and it will remain in place until inevitably he loses his job.
I think Justin Fields is an amazing athlete. He's an unbelievable athlete. But the reality is you've got to remember the college system he's coming from in Ohio State there. You look at Justin Herbert, you look at Joe Burrow, you look at Trevor Lawrence, and you look at the systems they played in college. It made them more NFL ready. Like the ability and the requirements go through progressions, the style in which they're playing, inevitably set them better up for success. And I think, honestly, Justin Fields needs time. He needs time to be coached. He needs time to learn the game. I mean, the guys rightly allude to, like, Peyton Manning's first season, 1-15 with the Colts, but the arm strength, the capability was there. I think we're going to see that, and we've seen that a bit already with Trevor Lawrence. He can make the progressions, he can make the right reads, and he can make any throw you like. Justin Fields, for me, is a true talent that can work both ways, but they should be resting and sitting him. And the ridiculous situation, we didn't touch on it, the ridiculous situation of Matt Nagy this week saying, any one of my three quarterbacks might start this week. Any one of the three, Andy Dalton, Nick Foles, or Justin Fields. It's kind of like, what are you doing? But again, he is so intrinsically linked to the other two four-letter words in Chicago being Ryan Pace. And for me, they've got to do what the Texans did last year. And before the end of the year, before the year turns 22, they fire the two of them and they completely clean house. Dramatic, yes. Could that hold back Justin Fields' development with new head coaches, new offensive coordinators? Yes. But really, Bears fans, I think you've seen enough of what they bring to the party, and they need something else.
Okay. We have got 4 or 5 more games to look over, so thanks for your questions. If you want to ask us a question at the end, feel free to chat to us. I mean, these boys will be here all night as well, so it should be a good laugh. No, we've got a few more games to look at, so right after the break, we will look at the 9 o'clock late games, look at Sunday Night Football, and also look ahead to our bets of the week on the Irish NFL Show. Welcome back into the Irish NFL Show. We're going to look ahead now to the late slate games here at the Technology Cafe, deep in the heart of Navan town. Delighted to be here. Thank you very much again to Technology Cafe for the opportunity, and our partners for Trust for helping us get this venue this week. Cardinals 3-0 against the Rams 3-0. Nice game, Colin. Two good teams, both 3-0. Will probably be there at the end of the season. Who gets this win? This game is at SoFi Stadium.
Yeah, I mean, you were talking earlier about the Vikings-Browns being game of the week. This could be game of the week, other than the Sunday night game. But two teams averaging more than 30 points per game this season, both playing really well. The issue for, I suppose, the Cardinals is that the Rams have tended to have their number. I think the Rams have won 8 straight against the Cards. I was watching the PFF podcast earlier this week, and Sam Monson talked about the John Randall ad. I don't know if anyone has seen it. John Randall did an ad back in '98 where he had a chicken dressed in a Brett Favre jersey when Brett Favre was playing for the Packers, and he was chasing the chicken to practice for the fact that Favre could at that point scramble, and they were imagining Aaron Donald doing something similar with Kyler Murray. Murray has not been good against the Rams up to now. He's really struggled. He hasn't thrown for more than 200 yards against the Rams. They've really reduced his ability to get out of the pocket and make plays, which he is so good at. All that said, things have to come to an end at some point. I think the Rams, having expended so much to kind of overcome the Bucs and kind of be number one and be seen that way, I think the Cards win this early in the season. I still think the Rams are probably going to win the division, but I actually can see the Cards winning this one.
We spoke in last week's show about the challenge that the Rams had going up against the Super Bowl champions Bucs, and to put a marker down at that stage of the season, potentially around getting the number one seed in the playoffs. And just another game in many ways. It's an opportunity to put a marker down in the division. The 49ers, having lost to the Packers last week, the Seahawks are a bit up and down at the moment. They've lost already 2 games. And this is 2 3-0 teams, and the Rams right now are the only team standing at 3-0 that were actually in the playoffs last year. And I know that they're your selection, Michael, to go to the Super Bowl. And having watched them the first 3 weeks, they're a legitimate team. You can see why. Defensively, we're gone 16 games in a row now where they haven't given up over 30 points. And the Cards so far this season have scored over 30 points in every game. Strange enough that Hopkins, who last year was their most efficient wide receiver, having come in for the Texans, he hasn't caught more than 5 balls so far in each game. So they're spreading it around on offense. They're clicking. Murray looks really good and efficient. But for me, the Rams are a serious contender, where I still think the Cards haven't had a good start to the season. I'm going to fall short in this game. I think the Rams will win, go on to 4-0. And I think gradually we'll see the Cards drop back to the wild card place that we expect them to be in the running for.
So we're in the technology cafe. There's loads of great gaming gear around. So I'm going to give you a gaming analogy. This is Skyrim versus Mike Tyson's Knockout, right? And it's Skyrim because open world RPG. Kyler Murray could do anything you like. He's going to roam wherever he wants to go. And this season he has kicked off with a bang. He is one of the most dynamic talents in the entire NFL, and he's so exciting to watch. And as Brian always says on his bets and planning, he's almost guaranteed to run it in for a touchdown at some point during the game. But he's going against Tyson at his peak with a knockout punch, whether on offense or defense. They've always had it on defense there. Again, we talk about Aaron Donald, possibly the best player in the NFL, full stop. But the rest of that defense is pretty impressive as well. But now they have those knockout punches on offense as well. Matthew Stafford is delivering. Will people adjust? Will coaches adjust? Of course they will. But so far, Sean McVay has what he wanted. The trade is paying dividends. And for me, the Rams will put the Cardinals, who should be 2-1. Let's not forget, poor Greg Joseph and the Vikings. They'll put them in their place and go to 4-0.
The Cardinals have been great so far this season. I've been really impressed with the Cardinals. I love how they're spreading the ball about. I know DeAndre Hopkins hasn't had as many carries as he wanted to this year, but seeing a guy like AJ Green, who I think deserves to have a shot at winning the ring at some point in his career, get the chances in that team is really intriguing. But I've really been impressed with Kyler Murray. He looks like he literally went at the end of last season and just improved and improved and improved. He is probably the most improved player in my opinion in the league so far this season. That being said, though, the Rams have got their man in Matthew Stafford. How good did they look last week against Tampa Bay? I think the Rams will win this game based on that. I think they look incredible, boys, honestly. And for them to go out and score 34 points against Tampa Bay, albeit they have a few injuries out at the minute, and they've picked up Richard Sherman during the week. I think Stafford, Kupp, Woods, I think that combination, never mind even talking about Darrell Henderson or the defensive side of the ball, means the Rams will win this. Could be a shootout, could be a really high-scoring game, but I think the Rams will score upwards of 30 or 40 points and win this game comfortably today.
Michael, we've talked about the concerns of the Rams running the ball. Last week against the Bucs, do you know who the biggest rusher for the Bucs was?
Who?
Tom Brady. That's not really a good sign. Whereas Henderson, Sony Michel, who they got in the trade with the Pats, obviously started to show some signs. So that's the biggest worry we had of holding them back, but more than enough last week on top of that amazing wide receiver core.
Absolutely.
Can I just say that I think Christian Kirk against Jalen Ramsey could be one for the ages. Moving Kirk to the slot has been brilliant by the Cards, and that should be fascinating because that is where Ramsey tends to play. So that's one to keep an eye on.
That game's on Sky Sports tonight as well. Looking forward to watching it. I think it is. Yeah, it is. Okay, that's an NFC West matchup. We have another NFC West matchup tonight. Seahawks going to the 49ers. Both teams 2-1. 49ers miss out against the Packers on Sunday Night Football. The 49ers obviously missed out, but the Seahawks as well, Colin, lose in Minnesota last week. A big game for both teams, especially when the other two teams are playing each other.
Yeah, before we started recording, Mark asked Matthew which camera you look when you want to make a point. And I said, is that like if I'm going to rant? And Mark said, when you rant. So, yeah, I'm going to rant because the 49ers lost that game last week because Kyle Shanahan cannot stop wanting to be the smartest man in the room. He always wants to do it. And last week, or 2 weeks ago, the Jared Goff ran all over the Packers. Jared Goff ran all over the Packers. And what did Kyle Shanahan do? Did he use Trey Lance, who he gave up the farm for, to run all over them? No, he didn't. Didn't bother doing it. And he ended up costing his team, I think. I don't trust Jimmy G. He has moments in games, but I don't think he'll ever win it for you. I don't understand why they're not using Lance more. Shanahan is incredibly talented, but he's got to get over this need to want to win it on his terms. That is his biggest flaw, I feel. But for the Seahawks, who just gave up so much to the Vikings, you're facing a very similar offense. And the Seahawks on defense have really struggled. I saw Jamal Adams has 15, he's blitzed 15 times or rushed the passer, but he's not a single pressure, which is a huge drop-off. Now, Russell Wilson has never lost 3 consecutive games for the Seahawks, but I think that changes for them. I do think the 49ers will win it, although it is a tough one to call. But I think that hopefully maybe he's learned some lessons, Kyle, and that they will do enough. I think the Seahawks have real issues defensively and real issues falling off a cliff in the second half of games.
We're seeing the Seahawks defense raising its ugly head that we saw last year. The first 8 games last year, they were the worst defense in the league. The second part of the season, the next 8 games, they were the best. Strangely enough, they're 31st ranked in the league at the moment defensively. You look at the games, you look at what they're giving up, it just looks exactly like the first half of last season. On last week's show, I discussed the fact that the 49ers were missing 4 running backs for the game, and I picked the Packers because I didn't think Jimmy G would be able to go up and down the field against Aaron Rodgers. Well, he did, and they lost by a field goal. And to Colin's point, they lost on a field goal because the head coach time and time again finds ways to lose big games. The Super Bowl, when he was at the Falcons, he gave that game away to the Patriots. I know the Patriots had a great comeback. The game was there to be won at the end. He let that one slip. He let the Super Bowl slip against the Chiefs. I know people go on about Jimmy G not making that pass at the end, but he had an opportunity to continue with the run game. He got away from it, and again, he lost that game. And similar enough last week, similar situation. He got away from what was working, and they lost the game. Deebo Samuel, you look at players this season, Deebo Samuel always seems to play well against the 49ers. He's had 200-plus yard games, and right now he's been arguably one of the best wide receivers in the league. I'm not convinced by the Seahawks. Wilson hasn't lost 3 in a row, to Colin's point, but this week he will. I think the 49ers will make a huge step within the division and win the game.
Alan Turing created the first modern computer, although my Bulgarian friend still claims it was John Atanasov created the first computer. I'd never heard of him, but he still says it was a Bulgarian invention. The problem is, though, if you look back at that original computer and see where modern computers evolved to, obviously it's a completely different world. And both of these teams and what they initially started out with their DNA have completely evolved. Where is that famed Seattle cover 3 defense? Where is the Legion of Boom, if you like? Where is the defense has been absent without loss for the last 3 years? Brian says, last 8 weeks they were the worst defense in the NFL. No, they were the worst defense historically ever in the history of the NFL through the first 8 games in number of yards and touchdowns and points they were giving up. They don't have the answers there necessarily, but now they lean on Russell Wilson. Now they let Russ cook. Now they give him Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf and ask him to create miracles every single week. The 49ers, they've evolved from their DNA as Shanahan started out. I mean, yes, injuries impact. Where is the curse for them? We talk about the Mayo curse. Last season, they were obliterated by injuries. This season already 4 running backs down. I mean, what are they, Baltimore or something? They just keep losing players time and time again. So who has lost less and who is less evolved? I don't think either of these teams are in a position to challenge for a Super Bowl, challenge in the playoffs anymore. They have been overtaken and outpassed and outclassed. But for me, one team will rage against the dying of the light, and that will be the Seattle Seahawks, who moved to 3-1 and still in with a hope.
You all heard it here, folks.
2-2, 3-1.
Mark picked the Seahawks. Just remember that on Sunday night at 10 to 12 before we all go to our bed. I like Jimmy G. I think Jimmy G will come back good in the second half of the season. I like him. I like what they're doing, bringing him in, having Trey Lance there as well in the odd place. That's how you bring a quarterback into the league. That's just my opinion. One thing we haven't mentioned, week 2, the Seahawks concede 33 points against the Titans, 30 points last week against the Vikings. Where has that defense went from the days I used to be scared watching them in red zone when my team wasn't even playing them to now? But one massive factor in this game, Tyler Lockett. As of the time of recording, he's questionable. Even if he does play, he's not fully fit. He's been unbelievable this season, but he honestly probably needs a week off. I think the 49ers will make right what they done wrong last week against the Packers, and I can see them getting the win, albeit by 7 to 10 points. But yeah, I think Lockett could be potentially a huge loss. Now watch Tyler Lockett go out and score 3 or 4 touchdowns today after I've said that. But yeah, I'm going to take the 49ers. Let's jump penultimate game. Well, second last game before we look at the biggest game of the year for some people. The Ravens 2-1 against the Denver Broncos 3-0 at Mile High. Broncos 3-0. Lamar Jackson coming to town. Colin, who have we got in this one?
Yeah, so the Broncos obviously sitting pretty alongside the Raiders at the top of the AFC West and facing Ravens team who have been involved. I mean, every single game has been absolutely bananas for the Ravens. Week 1, they're 14-0 up on the Raiders. They conspired to lose that game. Week 2, they are down double digits to the Chiefs in the fourth quarter, and they somehow win. Last week, 66-yard record-breaking field goal sees them beat the Lions. So expect the unexpected. They have Lamar Jackson, who has a back injury. I'm wondering if that's a bit of gamesmanship. I'm not sure how serious that is. If he isn't there, then that's a huge issue for the Ravens, because he is just so explosive. Like we saw in the playoff game against the Titans last year, how he can put the team on his back. You make one mistake and you leave a pocket open and he is gone through it. And we know he can make plays with his hands as well. But the strange thing is the Ravens defense, which is traditionally so strong, have allowed 68% completion rate, given up nearly 9 yards per completion. And so that's the concern for the Broncos. They're going to have to bring their A game. Von Miller has been playing brilliantly. If the Broncos are going to win, they're going to need him to wreck the game. And I think it's possible, even if Justin Tucker is capable of kicking from the car park in Denver. I'm going to go. I think the Broncos are going to surprise people. I think the Broncos are moving to 4-0.
We discussed in the preseason around the fact that, in the season preview show, around the fact that Baltimore had lost 2 marquee running backs and how it was going to impact on the season. Well, right now they're the number 1 rushing team in the league. But large part of that comes from the quarterback, who has 251 rushing yards for the season, which is the most by any quarterback since 1950. Outside of that, you struggle to see where they're going to win the game. I know Hollywood Brown has come up with some good plays in the game against the Chiefs where they came back, but they struggled last week. You know, we touched on the fact how poor the Lions are, but yet they struggled last week and they only put up 19 points on them, and 2 or 3 of them were field goals. So you consider where they're going to get the points from. For the Broncos, to me, it's a bit of an unknown. I can't turn around right now and say the Broncos are a really good side or a really poor side or they're an average side, because you look at what they played, the Giants, the Jets and the Jags. So, you know, as you said on other shows, you look at the start of the season and arguably you should be winning those games. And if you're not, then you're really concerned. But for me, this is a must-win game for Broncos in terms of the division, because I do believe the Chiefs will come back again. The Chargers look like they're going in the right direction. And let's not underrate the Raiders, who are 3-0, and I picked to go to the playoffs. So I'm just going to keep rolling that one out until they lose. But for me, tight game, Ravens just, because I think Lamar Jackson will just find a way to get it done, but I don't see it as a high-scoring game. I think the Broncos will be well in the game. I just think they'll find their way late in the fourth just to get over the line.
Yeah, I mean, look, last week we had all the makings of a classic trap game for the Ravens. So coming off that amazing win, they nearly did throw it away. They should have lost. Still, as I say, I can't believe they didn't lose, but fair play. They made the plays they needed to at the end of the game when it mattered. For me, there's a reference that rings a bell with me, which is a famous manga movie, Ghost in the Shell. And in it, the various characters, they've enhanced cybernetic abilities, they've embedded cybernetic brains and bolted on capabilities. So they're effectively cyborgs. And the famous character is Major Motoko Kasangi, who also then gets played by Scarlett Johansson in the Hollywood remake, but that's a different matter altogether. Lamar Jackson is cybernetically enhanced. He is an undeniable freak of nature. He is unbelievable when it comes to running, not so much throwing, but he is a dynamic threat in that regard. And the reason why Ghost in the Shell is so relevant is not only does he reflect Ghost in the Shell, but the Broncos and the Broncos' records is just a ghost in a shell at the moment. They've been 3 bad teams. The Ravens aren't perfect. They're missing 2 running backs. They're missing their best corner, and they're not going to be a real contender this year, but they're good enough to beat the Broncos. The Ravens will win, and the Broncos start their decline.
Mark spent more time on IMDb than on the NFL this week.
I'm loving the references, not going to lie. Look, this is Lamar Jackson's. He's trying to go for the 4th in a row against an AFC West team with 80-plus rush yards. So he loves playing against AFC West teams. They were poor last week. He doesn't usually have 2 poor weeks in a row. They were poor last week against the Lions. As a Broncos fan, they've had a 5-game preseason. Let's not beat around that bush, but they look steady with Teddy. They look as if they're capable, and the thing that really excites me as a fan is seeing how good Pat Surtain II is. I think whenever you go up against a team at Empire Field in Mile High, you're always going to have a tough game whenever the crowd are with you. When you get 70,000 people cheering against you when you got that ball under center, I think it's going to be difficult. I think this will be a very tight game. But I think the defense for the Broncos will come up and the Broncos will get a win. I'm not going to sit here and say the Broncos might go 5 or 6 or 0, but I think they will go 4-0. And I think not just Justin Tucker, but Justin Simmons, who's had not a quiet start to the season, but maybe not as explosive as last year. I think this could be his introduction. You got Von Miller there, Pat Surtain there. But also, KJ Hamler's a massive miss for this team. You got to see Tim Patrick come in. But I'm taking the Broncos to go 4-0, and I think then Week 5 will be the key. They have a very difficult schedule after that, but let's see what happens. Okay, we got 2 more games to look at this week. The Pittsburgh Steelers against the Green Bay Packers at Lambeau Field this Sunday. Well, tonight actually. Yeah, thanks for the recording thing there. But yeah, it's been a long week. Colin, who have you got in this game?
So the Steelers shocked the Bills in week 1, but it's been all downhill since. There was all of that, the TJ Watt contract. They had looked so, on special teams and defense, they looked so good, but yeah, it hasn't been good since. And obviously the Packers were shocked in week 1, but it's been all uphill since. Blitzburg came up empty last week. I think that was the end of, was it a 75, 76 game streak of sacks? I think the other thing about this was I was looking at some stats this week, and stats lie. So what was it? Ben Roethlisberger passed for a season high 318 yards last week. Yeah, but he was sacked 4 times. He had 2 interceptions. As Michael Lombardi said, he looked like he was playing with cement on his feet. Like there was pressure on him all the time. So if you're playing against the Steelers, you know what to do. It's a big fall from grace for the Steelers, who are traditionally kind of so strong. I just think, if you're the Packers looking at this, and you're looking at the Steelers, you know how to approach it. You know what to do, and the Steelers have not got a running game going either. So the Packers, for me, are going to win this, and the Steelers are 1-3.
Yeah, we were fortunate to speak to the general manager during the off-season, and we also had Tom Rooney on when he was in Dublin, and they both referred to how well Big Ben looked coming into this season. And it just reminds me of everything I've heard from the Giants over the years, when it looked like Eli Manning was finished, and the general manager was coming out and saying all the right things about the quarterback. The quarterback looks great, and he's experienced, and he knows how to play the game, and he doesn't need to be mobile and get around the pocket. You know yourself, it's all wrong. And Big Ben is all wrong. He's been sacked 8 times in 3 games. As you said, he just doesn't look the player of old. The offensive line has been patched back together in terms of 5 new players starting on the line this season, as opposed to what they were when they lost that playoff game against the Browns. And then for the Packers, I think people got carried away with week 1 when they lost to the Saints and felt they were a bit complacent, but they've addressed that since. They weren't great in week 2 against the Lions, but certainly last week, in what I felt was a must-win game to kind of answer the critics. Rodgers looks to be refocused. I don't know whether he was doing that particular celebration at the end for the cameras in terms of the field goal, but I think he was trying to make a point to people out there that have been criticising him throughout the off-season about the fact that they didn't feel he was all in on this season with Green Bay. It was suggested after the week 1 loss he's not really in for it. He's just back to make his money. He'll move on next season. I think he's quickly established that in terms of showing what he's done over the past 2 weeks. Packers are winning this game. This would be the biggest shock of the season for me if the Packers weren't winning this game on Sunday.
Yeah, the Steelers are an analog creature at the moment in a digital world. That's the reality. Their offensive line is letting them down horrendously. I love Game Pass because you go into the coach's film, right? And I look at the coach's film. I'm no 12-year-old focusing on the Jets. I'll emphasize that. But I challenge anybody to find 5 plays where the offensive line look like, and I say look like because we don't know the calls, but look like they're exercising all their assignments correctly. They just aren't. They're allowing pressure after pressure. Najee Harris can't get any momentum, and he's having a horrible start to his career because they literally can't find any holes for him. Big Ben, of course, he's not the most mobile at any stage in his career, but they're really not giving him a chance. And that is just not good enough in the modern NFL. You've got to give your offense a chance because you need to put up points. You especially need to put up points against the Green Bay Packers. I mean, the analogy I'll give you on the Green Bay Packers is this year they're the Apple Watch. Really rocky launch, really dodgy launch, and nobody was sure would it take off. Then it booms back to success, and all the way along, though, it's just a little bit showy, a little bit too smug for the people that have them and are wearing them. And unfortunately, Aaron Rodgers, it's the Aaron Rodgers show, and he is a little bit smug about it all. And we have this nonsense about recording a show an hour before a game. Aaron, just get on the field, play some games, maybe even win another NFC championship. It would double your total, and that would be good. But the Green Bay Packers are over that initial blip. They will win their division, and this is going to be a comfortable win for them.
I quite enjoyed seeing Aaron Rodgers and Pat McAfee the other day when he was swearing and stuff. Look, disappointing start to the season for the Steelers. I'm not saying it's tea and toast and RTE news at 9 o'clock yet for Ben Roethlisberger, but we could be getting to that point, boys. Just going to put it out there. Let's see what happens if he gets any protection this week. This shouldn't be an issue for the Packers. If Rodgers can't get it going in terms of his passing ability, which he should, he can hand it off to Aaron Jones. One guy that I think is under a bit of pressure is Robert Tonyan, the tight end this week. He needs to get a bit of action going this week, but the Packers should win this game, in my opinion, comfortably. Now, Mark has been waiting for this moment. I know the crowd's been waiting for this moment for a long time as well.
Waiting all day for Sunday night.
Show of hands, who's going to stay up to watch this game tonight? Big game, Brady returning the... No?
Right.
He's going to what? No? Not one hand. Okay, right, okay. The Bucks at the Patriots. Tom Brady returning to the homeland after a few years off. Paddy's Day 2 years ago. The week COVID hit here. crazy week. Tom Brady decides to go to Tampa Bay. It worked out okay for him, to be fair. Who wins this game today at Foxborough, or tonight?
Well, Tom Brady is playing probably better now than he did at any point in his career. Like 2007, 2011, Brady are looking at this going, he's even better. It's like, you know, we've said it before, it's Tom Brady's world and we're all living in it. How does Belichick scheme, right? It's been interesting because this week Brady said he hasn't thought about the game at all. But this is a man who admitted in June that 90% of what he says in public isn't true. Whereas Belichick has laid all the praise on, if there's anyone who can play till they're 50, it's Tom Brady. Oh, Tom. Which makes sense because you don't want to give Tom Brady any ammunition because he's going to have enough coming in. I think Brady is going to... This is a game where he is going to be so fired up. He's going to have all of his receivers fired up. He's got Gronk. I think they are going to put a beat down on the Patriots. I think this, like he is going to smash obviously the record, going to say for the passing yards, but he is going to look to extract every ounce of vengeance because that's what Tom Brady does. And I don't think the Patriots, his kryptonite is pressure up the middle. He had Aaron Donald in his face last week. I don't think the Patriots have that to get at him. And I can see the Bucs putting up 35 points on the Patriots in Foxborough, and Bill Belichick having a very, very bad time on the sidelines.
I mean, this Bucs team arguably now are better than what they were last year. You know, I know they lost last week to a very good Rams team, but you look at the stats, Brady, 300 plus yards each game, shown for a minimum of 2 touchdowns. 4 players have already had 100 plus yard games, and Godwin, Gronk, Evans, you go on with the players, it's just relentless. And then you look at the Patriots, they haven't had one player that's had 60 yards plus catching. I mean, that could be down to the fact that they're being conservative with the new quarterback. But there's always strange things that happen in the NFL. And the Patriots haven't lost 3 games in a row at home since 1993. Kraft wasn't even there at the time. He hadn't even taken ownership of the team. I think they've slowed them down. I reflect back in the game last year where everybody said the Ravens were going to go in on a Sunday night football against the Patriots and put a beat down on the Patriots. Real choppy weather game, windy. And the Patriots found a way to win. And I think they're going to find a way to win on Sunday. I think if anybody can scheme against Tom Brady and know what flaws are there, and in fairness to the past, their 5th ranked defense for a reason. They've played efficiently well over the last few weeks, and they haven't got the results. Obviously, they've lost 2 games. But for me, Patriots defense will find a way to slow them down, and they'll put up enough points to eke out a very, I wouldn't say low scoring, but they'll win by a touchdown.
I've got to go last on this, Michael. You go.
I don't know what to say to that. Sorry for any Patriots fans. I haven't been impressed with the Patriots this season. I understand there's a whole journey there for Mac Jones, who, to be fair to him, had 270 yards and a touchdown last week, albeit he had 3 interceptions, but that's a conversation for a different time. Look, Belichick's been there. He's done it all. He's won it all with his team. I think it's interesting to hear the quotes coming out from Robert Kraft this week. I think Brady will want to win this game more than he wants to win a Super Bowl. And I think he will win it by multiple touchdowns. I'm actually going to stay up and watch it, because even if it's 5 or 6 touchdown lead, I think it'll be intriguing to watch, because I think this will finally hit Belichick whenever he's standing on the touchline and he's seeing Brady stand opposite him. That it is like the dynasty has finally ended, and it ended last year. But for Brady to leave, win a ring with Tampa Bay. Of course, they lost last week, but this team is going deep into the playoffs. To have a guy now also on the run with Giovanni Bernard. I know Murphy Bunting's out, but to even bring in Richard Sherman, they will be there. The Patriots won't. The Patriots are going to 1-3, and I think this could be a substantial defeat for them. But they will come again next week, I'm sure. Mark.
Sorry, quick point. A lot of conversation this week in the media around how the fans will react from coming back. Great reception before the game. But if they hit the 4th quarter and the Patriots are winning, I think you'll quickly see the fans turning.
If they've any respect for him, they'll not. Any
cheer
decent
him on for the
NFL
whole
fan,
game.
you
Michael,
can't-
stop with that
No.
nonsense.
I mean,
if
I
your
wouldn't boo
team
him.
is
You wouldn't
winning in the fourth quarter, you're going to be against the opposition no matter who the hell it is.
Do you think Tom
Look,
Brady won't
Of
celebrate
course,
if
you
he's
wouldn't be
winning in the
booing
fourth
or
quarter?
slagging someone from the crowd.
Brady-
They're
Let's
going
not
to
start
make
there.
noise on third down. They're going to try and distract him. They're going to try and
Yeah,
do
but I'm
anything
talking
they
about
need to
booing
win
or
it.
like-
What? Like the Packers fans did to Brett Favre? Like the Kings fans? The Oilers fans did to Wayne Gretzky? Like the Bulls fans did to Michael Jordan when he came back
We're
rushing
talking
the
about a
Wizards?
7-time
Don't
Super
give me
Bowl
that
winner
nonsense
here.
in relation to it.
6 time with the
Look,
Patriots. Put them on the map. He's the
18
reason that everyone looks at Belichick now and Kraft. So come on.
I
You
know,
can
I know
argue
you're
through-
jealous that they're the greatest
I'm
franchise
not.
of all time, but
I'm
that's
admitting
beside
that
the
they've
point.
done incredible.
Look,
I'm just,
there has been 18 months I've not looked forward to this date. There is 18 months. The second I heard the trade went down, I went, when do the Bucks play the Packs and where? And I circled this date. For me, I've given you a few machine and technology references tonight. This is really simple. This
Terminator.
No, Rage Against the Machine. Tom Brady's coming out singing "Killing in the Name of" at the top of his voice, and you better believe he's not singing the Christmas #1 version when he's doing it either. You talk about the reception he's going to get. I think there will be a mixed reception. There are some Patriots fans that said to me last season, the second they saw him in a Bucs jersey, it was like, break his legs. I don't care. He's dead to me in relation to it. I can't. I still think he's the greatest of all time. And what brings me to mind is that a lot of fans in Boston, they get a chance to say thank you and congratulate him in many respects and give him a send-off that he didn't get the opportunity to in leaving as a free agent. And obviously the ignominious last pass was a pick six, the Logan Ryan, of course, as I'm sure you guys will remind me. What I'm reminded of is a show, early 90s, Arsenio Hall's show. And Arsenio Hall had the Muhammad Ali on the show. And then he brings out Sugar Ray Robinson and Mike Tyson, who at that time was the biggest, baddest man in town. And Arsenio Hall asked Muhammad Ali and Mike Tyson, they said, hey, you in your prime and you in your prime, who wins? And Ali does the playing up to the crowd and kind of goes like, oh, I was a dancer, and if he cut me, I'd be gone, and fakes being knocked out and everything. And Tyson goes, I'm vain and I think I'm great, but every head must bow, every tongue must confess. This is the greatest of all time. And on Sunday at Foxborough, the greatest NFL player of all time plays at Foxborough for one last time. More touchdowns, more wins, more yards, more Super Bowls, more playoff wins, more success than anyone of all time. And I, for one, am gutted and love it at the same measure. So he will destroy them. Bucks will win this in a canter, to be honest with you. But the greatest comes back for one last time.
imagine booing somebody that's won 6 rings with your team. Come on, like.
But
I understand
Michael,
on a third down situation.
Is he going to be the same way if his team are winning and scoring
If
touchdowns?
the Patriots
No, he
score
won't be.
50 points
No,
tonight,
he won't
and
be.
are they
He'll
going
be
to
in
boo
the
him
end zone.
walking off?
He'll be in the end zone giving it large if they score touchdowns. So is he going to be respectful back?
I think he will.
I'm struggling. I'm trying to think. What would it be like to run out of town, the legend that established your franchise, and say that you actually fired him? Oh, that's right. That's the Denver Broncos and what they did to John Elway.
How did the Colts
so,
treat?
Back in your box.
Oh, okay, right, okay. Well, that game's Sunday Night Football tonight, so get a bit of coffee, get maybe a bit of technology cafe. I don't think they're open at 1 in the morning, but we'll see.
And tweet Mark.
Tweet Mark, and we'll get Mark's on the bottom of the screen here now. It's during the game. Coming up next, our final segment of the show, we're going to give our bet predictions ahead of this week. You're having a good week, last few weeks. So join us for the final segment in a few minutes on the Irish NFL Show. Welcome back into the Irish NFL Show here in Navan. In the final segment of this week's show, we're going to look at our tips for the week, presented by Matchbook Betting Exchange. You can use code Irish NFL Show, lads, for a bonus, both in the Republic of Ireland and in Northern Ireland as well, or in the UK, if you want to do that there. Brian, you're the main man. I get 14 picks now last week, but what's our accumulator or bet this week?
I'm not the main man. I'm the one who just calls out the bet every week.
Well, you just picked the Patriots, so I mean, who's? I'm joking.
No, it's general consensus best, but we have been fortunate. We've won the last 2 weeks thanks to our partners at Matchbook.com. This week we're going with a treble. We haven't gone too big in terms of odds, but we're confident these 3 teams will win. We think the Chiefs will rebound against the Eagles. We feel the Packers will have too much for the Steelers, and the Titans will beat a hapless Jets team. So treble, I think it pays in the region of 6-4, 7-4. Titans, Packers, Chiefs, all to win on the money line.
Sounds good. And as I said, you can use code Irish NFL Show with Matchbook to get a bonus. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Let's very quickly go through our underdog of the week, our pick of the week. I'm going to take the Broncos against the Ravens. As I said previously, I think the Broncos will win. I think that's a big underdog pick for me. Who have you got?
As an underdog, well, I went for the Lions. I think that they'll just unfortunately have too much for a Bears team who, to me, are in disarray and are in need of a new direction, a new head coach, a new GM. Difficult to do that mid-season, I think. They are playing, maybe Dan Campbell has given them all that Starbucks diet that he talked about, but I think the Lions will surprise the Bears at Soldier Field.
For a long time today, the Bucks were actually in this bet, but we always agree it has to be the same team that we all four pick. I'm picking the Patriots. It'll probably be one of the biggest shocks of the season, but I think defensively they'll do enough to slow Brady down. It's the Patriots for me on Sunday night.
And I'm just going to be controversial and disagree completely with Brian. As I said, my underdog is the Lions, I called out earlier, but the pick of the week for me is the Bucks. I cannot see Tom Brady going back to Foxborough and losing, with all the points about Bill Belichick, with all the points about the Bucks having not a great defense and the Patriots run game potentially have an opportunity to take off. It will still be Tom Brady and the Bucks winning on Sunday night.
Looking forward to it. That is our picks for the week and also our bet of the week as well. Thank you also to Matchbook for that, giving us a few euros or yo-yos to throw in the caddy. But also thanks to everybody here today in Navan, in the Technology Cafe, that's both either came down or helped us put on the show. Also thanks to Trust Gaming for the fantastic set here this evening. The prizes that they gave away over the last few months, we really appreciate your support to at the team, to the guys at Technology Cafe. We can't thank you lads enough, and hopefully I'd love to come down to Meath again. This is my first time in Meath. I'm actually embarrassed to say that, but great crack in Navan today, boys, and looking forward to next week. Any final points? No, these are all.
I'd love if there was one of these in Dublin.
Yeah, I'd take one where I am in Dungannon, in Tyrone. Brian, will be any final points?
No, I just want to thank John and Emmett that put this great show together. Without their help over the past few weeks, this wouldn't have come to pass. So great effort. We've been working very closely with them over the past month, and hopefully we'll work together to roll out across some other shops across the country.
And Mark, a massive thanks as well to Matthew again for some fantastic camera work.
Absolutely, really appreciate it. It's great doing these live shows. I mean, it's one thing doing it on Zoom and having our rows. It's always better to have our rows in person and everything. But I just like the Technology Cafe to have the NFL up here on Sundays, guys. Maybe you can work that.
Here, I'll drive down. I'm only an hour and 20 minutes away. But yeah, I can't wait for this week. Already week 40 NFL season. I hope you all enjoy the games today. We are live from Tottenham Hotspur Stadium next Sunday at 9 a.m. and in week 6 at 9 a.m. Somebody, if you're in London, please bring us some coffee. There may be people on, maybe there'll be some guests next week, but we'll be at Tottenham next Sunday at 9 a.m. Do not miss it, and we'll see you soon on the Irish NFL Show. Thanks for joining us, and thanks to everybody here today. Thanks, folks.
Thanks, everyone.